Still on the Hermit for Meditations on the Tarot. This is the third antinomy he was talking about, which is faith versus empirical science. For truly I say to you, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move hence to yonder place, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible to you. That's from Matthew. These are the words of the Master. And science takes a grain of hydrogen and releases the energy imprisoned in this grain and reduces the mountain to dust, replies the 20th century. This is where we are with respect to the antinomy of faith and empirical science. Our faith does not transport mountains, but the energy that we have learnt to wield through science is quite capable of reducing them to dust. Is it because we do not have a mustard grain of faith? Is it because we have concentrated all our efforts on the task of penetrating the secret contained in a grain of hydrogen instead of the task of acquiring faith as in a grain of mustard? In order to be able to answer these questions, we must first take account of what faith is and what empirical science is. Faith. Faith which can, when it is as a grain of mustard seed, transport mountains. Is faith identical with faith belief, with the feeling of certainty with regard to a doctrine? Is it identical with faith confidence, with the absence of doubt with respect to the sureness of the authority of a witness or testimony? Is it, lastly, identical with faith hope, with optimism as opposed to pessimism? Briefly, is it sufficient that we have no doubt at all in order to realize nothing will be impossible to you? Many mad people certainly display a complete absence of doubt with regard to their illusions or fixed ideas. They would therefore be able to do miracles if faith was nothing other than intensity of belief, confidence and hope due to the absence of doubt. Because mad people certainly have this intensity. However, the intensity of belief, confidence and hope alone is not the faith that the Gospel has in view. There it is evidently a question not only of the intensity of certainty, but rather the intensity of the certainty of the truth. If this were not so, mad people would be thaumaturgists, and madness would be the ideal. A force which can move a mountain must be equal to that which piled it up. Therefore, the faith which can move mountains can neither be an intellectual opinion nor a personal feeling, no matter how intense. It must be the product of the union of the thinking, feeling and desiring human being with cosmic being, with God. The faith which moves mountains is therefore complete union, even if only for an instant, of man and God. This is why illusion can in no way engender faith, and this is also why miracles due to faith are testimonies of the truth, and not only of sincerity of belief, confidence and hope of the person through whom they are operated. Miracles are fruits of the union of the whole concentrated human being with cosmic truth, beauty and goodness, with God. They are operations of divine human magic, which is, and always will be, based on the spiritual constellation God-man, or in other words, they always operate in the name of Jesus Christ, conforming to the formula, my Father is working still, and I am working. The faith for which nothing is impossible is the state of the soul where God works and the soul also works. It is the state of soul concentrated on the truth to which God adds the intensity of certainty as the power which renders miracles possible. It is magic due to the union of two mages, God and man. It is therefore neither logical certainty nor the certainty of authority, nor the acceptance of a testimony worthy of faith. It is the union of the soul with God, attained through effort of thought, through confidence in that which is worthy of confidence, through accepting testimonies worthy of faith, through prayer, meditation, contemplation, through practicing moral endeavour, and through many other ways and endeavours which help the soul to open to the divine breath. Faith is divine breath in the soul, just as hope is divine light and love is divine fire in the soul. Empirical science. Heat, steam, magnetism, electricity, nuclear energy. Such are the powerful forces harnessed by man thanks to the prodigious work of empirical science. It is thanks to science that we are able to converse with our friends across the ocean, to see what takes place thousands of miles away, to visit a sick friend in another country within an hour, to call to our aid when we are in distress at sea, in the mountains or in the desert, life-saving expeditions, planes, boats, ambulances. It is thanks again to science that we are able to hear the voice of someone who has been dead for years, that we are able to walk despite having lost a leg, that we are able to see far although being myopic, that we are able to hear whilst being almost deaf, and that we have the capacity for many other things, all of which are thanks to empirical science. To what may the fabulous success which science achieves be attributed? What is the basic principle which can explain it? It is doubt in the first place, for it is thanks to doubting the experience of the senses that science has been able to establish that it is not the sun which moves across the sky, but rather the earth which moves around it. It is thanks to doubting all-powerful fate that remedies and methods of treatments for healing formerly incurable illnesses were sought for and found. It is again thanks to doubting past traditions that empirical science discovered biological evolution, hormones, enzymes, vitamins, the structure of the atom, and subconscious consciousnesses. For doubt is at the very root of every question, and questions are the basis of every quest and or research. Doubt is therefore the father of the scientific method. It is this which is the primus motor, the principle which once set in motion the whole prodigious machine consisting of laboratories, observatories, libraries, museums, collections, universities, scientific academies and associations. Doubt set all in motion, but it is the fruitfulness of the motion to be attributed to doubt alone. Or is the fruitfulness to be attributed? Does doubt alone suffice for discoveries? Is it not necessary to believe in the possibility of such discoveries before one sets out on the route which leads to them? Evidently this is necessary. The father of empirical science is doubt, and its mother is faith. It owes its fruitfulness to faith, just as it owes its motivating force to doubt. Just as there is scientific doubt underlying empirical science as a method, so there is a scientific faith which underlies science as the principle of its fruitfulness. Newton doubted the traditional theory of gravity, but he believed in the unity of the world, and therefore in cosmic analogy. This is why he could arrive at the cosmic law of gravitation in consequence of the fact of an apple falling from a tree. Doubt set his thought in motion, faith rendered it fruitful. What, therefore, are the dogmas of scientific faith? The following is a scientific creed. I believe in a single substance, the mother of all forces, which engenders bodies and the consciousness of everything, visible and invisible. I believe in a single Lord, the human mind, the unique son of the substance of the world, born from the substance of the world after centuries of evolution, the encapsulated reflection of the great world, the epiphenomenal light of primordial darkness, the real reflection of the real world, evolved through trial and error, not engendered or created, consubstantial with the mother substance, and through whom the whole world can be reflected. It is he who, for we human beings, and for use, has ascended from the shadows of the mother substance. He has taken on flesh from matter through the work of evolution, and he has become the human brain. Although he is destroyed with each generation that passes, he is formed anew in each generation following, according to heredity. He is summoned to ascend to comprehensive knowledge of the whole world, and to be seated at the right hand of the mother substance, which shall serve in his mission as judge and legislator, and his reign will never end. I believe in evolution, which directs all, which gives life to the inorganic and consciousness to the organic, which proceeds from the mother substance and fashions the thinking mind. With the mother substance and the human mind, evolution receives equal authority and importance. It has spoken through universal progress. I believe in one diligent, universal civilizing science. I acknowledge a single discipline for the elimination of errors, and I await the fruits of collective efforts of the past for the life of civilization to come. So be it. These are the 12 articles of scientific faith, which is based not only on scientific effort through the centuries, but also on the martyrdom undergone by numerous human beings in the name of science. Compare this creed with the traditional Christian creed, article by article, and the whole significance of the antinomy faith, empirical science will be evident. The synthesis. The unique substance at the basis of the multiplicity of phenomena, the human mind, capable of reducing this multiplicity to a unity, the evolution to which the human mind owes its existence, and the collaboration with which it promises to the human mind its future development until it becomes master of evolution, the collective and organized effort, according to the method of doubt and empirical verification continued from century to century, these are the four principal dogmas of scientific faith. Substance, the human mind, evolution and the scientific method constitute the four letters of the tetragrammaton of the ineffable name of science. Eliphas Levi made much of a case for the role which the name Havayot, which is the tetragrammaton backwards, Hey Vav, Hey Yod, an inversion of the sacred tetragrammaton, Yod He Vav Hey, plays in used in black magical evocations. As the tetragrammaton is a law of causality, the sequence active principle, passive principle, neutral principle, and their manifestation, or again, effective cause, material cause, final cause, and the phenomenon, and consequently of reason, he concluded that the inversion of the tetragrammaton is the magical formula for chaos and irrationality. Yet it is precisely the inverted tetragrammaton which is the arcanum of empirical science, because it is the passive principle of substance or matter which empirical science considers as first, as the principle par excellence, whilst the neutral principle, the human mind, follows, as the active principle, the method, concludes the series. In fact, in the name, Yod He Vav He, if Yod is the active principle, the effective cause, the first He is the passive principle, the material cause, Vav is the neutral principle, the final cause, and the second He is the whole phenomenon which results from it, then the inverse name would be the series passive principle, neutral principle, passive principle, active principle, or matter, reason, evolution, scientific method. The series Hey Vav Hey Yod means to say that nothing precedes matter, that nothing moves it, that it moves from itself, that mind is the child of matter, that evolution is matter which engenders mind, and that, lastly, mind once born is the activity of matter in evolution, which becomes conscious of itself and takes evolution in its hands. The inverted tetragrammaton is without doubt the formula, synthesis of empirical science. Is it that of chaos and irrationality? No. It is the mirroring of the formula spirit, matter, evolution, individuality of the sacred name Yod He Vav He. It is not the formula of irrationality no more than it is that of intelligence. It is the formula of cunning, ruse, that is, of reflected intelligence. It is not a logoical formula, a formula of the Logos, but rather it is that of the serpent of Genesis, who was the most cunning of all living creatures, and whose aspiration is the expansion of consciousness in the horizontal, the fields. The ultimate aim of the logic of cunning, that of the serpent, is not to become God, but to become like God, to become like. This is the essence of cunning, and it is also the meaning of scientific faith, the scientific creed, which is at the same time only a paraphrase and development of the promise of the serpent. Your eyes will be opened, and you will be like gods, knowing good and evil. To open your eyes to be like gods, knowing good and evil, this is the great arcanum of empirical science. This is why it is dedicated to the cause of enlightenment. Open your eyes for the horizontal. This is why it aspires to absolute power for man. Be like gods. And this is why, lastly, it is intrinsically amoral or morally neutral, knowing good and evil. Does it deceive us? No. It opens our eyes, in fact. And thanks to it, we see more in the horizontal. It gives us power over nature, in fact, and makes us sovereign over nature. It is useful to us, in fact, no matter whether for good or evil. Empirical science in no way deceives us. The serpent has not lied. On the plane where its voice and promise were audible. On the plane of horizontal expansion, the fields of Genesis, the serpent certainly keeps its promise. But at what price with regard to other planes and with regard to the vertical? What is the price of scientific enlightenment, this opening of the eyes in the horizontal, that is, for the quantitative aspects of the world? It is at the price of the obscuration of its qualitative aspect. The more one has open eyes for quantity, the more one becomes blind to quality. Yet all that one understands by spiritual world is only quality, and all experiences of the spiritual world is due to eyes that are open for quality, for the vertical aspect of the world. Thus number has only a qualitative meaning in the spiritual world. 1 signifies unity, 2 duality, 3 trinity, and 4 the duality of dualities. The vertical world, the spiritual world, is that of values, and, as the value of values is the individual being, it is a world of individual beings or entities. Angels, archangels, principalities, powers, virtues, dominions, thrones, cherubim and seraphim are so many individualized values or entities, and the supreme value is the supreme entity, God. Science reduces quality to quantity. This is what it calls knowledge. Thus the prismatic colours, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo and violet, use for science their quality of redness, orangeness, etc., and become quantities, that is, numbers expressing different frequencies or wavelengths of the vibration that one calls light. Light also is reduced to quantity. It is only a formula expressing quantitative factors of the vibration of something deprived of all quality. It is necessary, therefore, to turn one's back on empirical science because it accomplishes the promise of the serpent in opening our eyes to the quantitative world at the price of making us blind to the qualitative world. What should one do, confronted with the choice between science and religion? But is it necessary to choose? Does it not suffice to give each of these two aspirations its place, not that which they arrogate to themselves, but that which is their proper place? In fact, if there is not a religious empirical science or a scientific religion, there are religious scientists and scientific believers. In order to be a religious scientist or a scientific believer honestly, that is, without compromising one's conscience, it is necessary to add to the definite horizontal aspiration the definite vertical aspiration, that is, to live under the sign of the cross. This means to say that one separates the quantitative and qualitative aspects of the world in a clear way, and that one takes account of the precise differences between the function of a mechanism and the action of a sacrament. For the whole world has its mechanical side and its sacramental side. Moses describes the sacramental world in the book of Genesis. Modern astronomy is in the process of describing the world machine. The one speaks to us of the what and the other of the how of the world. The how is the mechanism, the what is the essence. The mechanism is knowable through quantity, the essence is revealed by quality. And the scientific creed? How does one reconcile it with the Christian creed? Because it is not the expression of belief in quantity alone, but it is also, and above all, that of belief in values contrary to those of the Christian creed. I have no other answer than the following. Crucify the serpent. Put the serpent, or the scientific creed, on the cross of religion and science, and a metamorphosis of the serpent will follow. The scientific creed then becomes what it is in reality, the mirroring of the creative word. It will no longer be truth, it will be method. It will no longer say, in the beginning was substance or matter, but it will say, in order to understand the mechanism of the made world, it is necessary to choose a method which takes account of the origin of matter and of that which set it in motion from above. And it will no longer say, the brain produces consciousness, but it will say, in order to understand the function of the brain, it is necessary to consider it in such a way as if consciousness is caused by it. The first metamorphosis of scientific faith will therefore be the transformation of its metaphysical dogma into methodological postulates. Its denial of God, of the creation, and of anti-phenomenal spirit will become the method of the ignorant scientist, which is nothing other than the concentration on the domain which is proper to it. This metamorphosis will be followed sooner or later by another, namely, that of changing the very will which manifests itself in scientific faith. The will to power, aspiring to the unlimited growth of man's domination of nature, no matter whether for good or evil, will gradually lose its moral indifference and will become more and more inclined to good. It will be transformed into the will to service. It is thus that scientific faith will undergo an alchemical transmutation, and that empirical science will cease to be amoral or immorally different. It will side with what is constructive, with what serves the health, life and well-being of humanity. After this, it will be open to all the innovations in its method that particular tasks call for, and it will one day finally devote itself to the constructive vital forces of the world with the same zeal and intensity that today it devotes to forces of destruction, heat due to combustion, electricity due to decomposition or friction, nuclear energy due to the destruction of atoms. This, in turn, will call for changes in scientific method in the sense that wishful ignorance of the spiritual world will be abandoned as out of date. But all this will not be able to take place until a number of scientists have set the bronze serpent on a pole, that is, to add, first of all, in the inner forum of consciousness, the vertical of religion to the horizontal of empirical science. This will neutralize the poison of scientific faith and transform it into a servant of life. It is the divine counsel that was given to Moses in the desert between Mount Hor and the land of Edom that I am referring to here. Moses made a bronze serpent and set it on a pole, and if a serpent bit any man, he would look at the bronze serpent and live. It is also we who are in the desert of the present day who have need of the bronze serpent set on a pole in order to look at it and thus save our spiritual life. The synthesis of science and religion is not a theory, but rather the inner act of consciousness of adding the spiritual vertical to the scientific horizontal, or, in other words, the act of erecting the bronze serpent. It should be said that this is not only biblical advice or the pious desire of a solitary man afflicted by the ravages that scientific faith supported by the success of empirical science has brought to bear upon mankind's spiritual life, but rather it is already an accomplished fact. And it is France which has had the honour of giving birth to and contributing to the education of the great contemporary scientist, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, at the same time he was a priest, who, knowing the situation from both sides, has erected high the bronze serpent in our time. His phenomenon of man, just as with all his works, published in 5 volumes, is the realized synthesis of the antinomy faith-empirical science, in the sense that a true scientist who was a true believer succeeded through his life's work in uniting the horizontal of science, and what a horizontal, with the vertical of religion, and what a vertical. It should still be added that he is not alone, and that there are many others who look at the bronze serpent, who thereby conserve life. With respect to ourselves, hermeticists, here we are brought up against a work which would have been due to be accomplished by us, but which was not, because we have not wanted to embrace wholeheartedly either the cause of science and its discipline, or that of religion and its discipline. We insisted upon a science for ourselves and a faith for ourselves. This is why no one amongst us was able to fully erect the bronze serpent for our age. Because to be able to do this, he would have to be simultaneously a true scientist according to the rules of academia, and a true believer according to the criteria of the Church. Who amongst us has not, at least in his youth, applauded the maxim boldly stated by Papists, neither Voltaire nor Loyola, which means to say, neither doubt nor faith? Well, the result is that we doubt a little and we believe a little. We do not have enough critical spirit where we ought to have it, and yet we have enough to render our faith lame when it is a matter of accepting without reserve the spiritual values offered for our appraisal. In practice, neither Voltaire nor Loyola means to say a little Voltaire and a little Loyola, because one cannot do entirely without doubt and faith. And there is one. I still have Father Pierre Teilhard de Chardin in mind, who had the courage to say both Voltaire and Loyola, and to be a true scientist at the same time as being a Jesuit. He heroically accepted the cross of Voltairean doubt and Ignatian faith. The result is a light-filled vision of the world evolving through the impulse of the serpent towards a final aim set by Providence. Let us not fear, therefore, to become like the hermit of the tarot, who is clothed in the habit of faith and whose doubt fathoms the ground with his staff. The light of the lamp which he holds is that which is emitted from the opposition of faith and doubt. The gift of black perfection, or the gift of perfect night. The arcana of the tarot, I must stress, are spiritual exercises, and the 9th arcanum, the Hermit, is one of them. For this reason, the preceding meditations on the 3 antinomies aim not so much at a solution of the antinomies that will please everyone, but more to encourage spiritual endeavour oriented towards the solution of these antinomies. You can certainly resolve them in a more profound and satisfying way. It is a matter, in the case of the solutions that I proposed above all, of a concrete illustration, which is, I know, far from being the best, of an individual endeavour by way of a special spiritual exercise. This consists in setting before you a thesis and an antithesis, both as clearly as possible. I should say, as crystallized light, in such a way that all intellectual light which is at your disposal may then be consumed by these 2 opposing theses. You will then arrive at a state of mind in which all that you know and clearly perceive is put into the thesis and its antithesis, so that they may be, like two rays of light, whilst your mind itself is plunged into darkness. You know and see nothing more than the light of these two contrary theses. Beyond them there remains only darkness. And it is then that one undertakes the essential thing about this exercise, namely, the endeavour to draw light from darkness, that is, an effort aiming at knowledge which appears to you to be not only unknown, but also unknowable. In fact, every serious antinomy signifies psychologically the light that I possess is polarized at two poles. Between these two luminous poles there is only darkness. Now it is from this darkness that the solution to the antinomy, the synthesis, must be drawn. It is necessary to create light from darkness. One could say that it is a matter of an act analogous to the fiat lux, let there be light, of the first day of creation. Experience teaches us that there are two kinds of darkness in the domain of consciousness. One is that of ignorance, passivity and laziness, which is infralight darkness. The other, in contrast, is the darkness of higher knowledge, intense activity, and endeavour still to be made. This is ultralight. It is a question of this latter, darkness, in instances where it is a matter of resolving an antinomy or finding a synthesis. Modern hermetic literature of the 19th and 20th century takes account of the neutralization of binaries, that is, the method where one finds the third term or neutral term for the two terms binary corresponding to the active and passive principles. Thus you will find in papers the following examples of this neutralization. So the father positive and the mother or active, father active, mother passive, are neutralized by the child. Light, positive, darkness, negative, neutralized by twilight. The sun, the moon, are neutralized by Mercury. The method of the neutralization of binaries, the term was in use in Russia, I am not sure if it is used in France, is generally considered by hermetic and occultist authors as the traditional method of hermeticism. Now, a binary can be neutralized in three different ways. 1, above, which is a synthesis. 2, in the horizontal, which is a compromise. And 3, below, which is a mixture. Neutralization above takes place when one finds the neutral term on a plane higher than the plane of the binary itself. So that's why it's represented by an upward triangle. Horizontal neutralization is accomplished by finding the median term between the two terms of the binary on the plane of the binary itself. Neutralization below is effected when one reduces the binary to a third term on a plane lower than that of the binary by way of mixing, and that's an inverted triangle. In order to illustrate the three ways of neutralization of binaries, the coloured body of the German scientist Wilhelm Ostwald will serve as an example. I'm not going to read all that out. If we now take, instead of the binary yellow-blue, that of mathematics descriptive science, or mathematics phenomenalism, and apply the three methods of neutralization here, we obtain a formula of transcendental synthesis, another that is a compromise or equilibrium, and a third that is indifferent, as follows. Transcendental synthesis. God geometrizes. Numbers are the creators of phenomena. That's the formula of Plato and the Pythagoreans. 2. Equilibrium. The world is order, that is, Phenomena display limits due to the equilibrium that we call measure, number, and weight, the formula of Aristotle and the Peripatetics. 3. Indifference. Our mind reduces phenomena to numbers so as to make it easier for the work of the mind to handle them. That's the formula of the skeptics. We see, therefore, that Platonism is oriented towards the white point of wisdom, Aristotelianism moves in the equatorial region of precise distinctions, and skepticism tends towards the black point of nihilism. With respect to Hermeticism, the Hermit holds the lamp which represents the luminous point of transcendental synthesis. He is wrapped in a mantle, hanging in folds, for deploying the particular qualities which have their place in the region of the equator, and he supports himself with a staff for feeling his way in the domain of darkness, in the region of the reversed cone culminating in the black point. He is therefore a peripatetic Platonist en route around the equator, making use of skepticism, his staff, while he walks. This is why the traditional interpretation of the ninth arcanum is prudence. And time for the next break.